My name is Marcus, and I'm 28 years old. I run a successful digital marketing agency in downtown Seattle, drive a BMW, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had my life completely figured out. I dated women my age, lived in a trendy apartment in Capitol Hill, and believed that love followed predictable patterns. I was wrong about everything. It started on a rainy Tuesday morning at Starbucks on Pine Street. I was waiting for my usual double shot Americano when I saw her for the first time. Margaret, Maggie, as she later told me to call her. She was standing by the window, reading what looked like a worn paperback novel, completely absorbed in the story. At 57, she possessed something I'd never encountered before. It wasn't just beauty, it was presence. Her silver-streaked auburn hair caught the morning light, and when she looked up from her book, her green eyes held decades of stories, laughter, and yes, pain too. She wore a simple navy cardigan and jeans, nothing flashy or attention-seeking. But there was an elegance about her, a confidence that comes only with experience. This was a woman who knew exactly who she was. And in that moment, watching her turn the page of her book, something shifted inside me. Something I didn't understand and definitely didn't want to feel. I tried to ignore it. I told myself it was ridiculous. She had to be, what, 25 years older than me? The rational part of my brain screamed that this was inappropriate, impossible, wrong on every level. But my heart didn't care about logic. I found myself going to that same Starbucks every Tuesday morning, week after week, not to see her, at least that's what I told myself, just for the coffee, the convenient location, the reliable Wi-Fi, lies, all of it. The third Tuesday, she smiled at me. Just a polite acknowledgement from one regular customer to another. But that smile, it lit up something inside me that I didn't even know was dark. The fifth Tuesday, I worked up the courage to say good morning. Her voice was warm, cultured, with just a hint of a southern accent that suggested she hadn't always lived in Seattle. "Good morning," she replied. "You're here every Tuesday, creature of habit?" "Something like that," I managed, feeling like a teenager asking a girl to prom. "I'm Margaret," she said, extending her hand. "Marcus." Her handshake was firm, confident. The brief contact sent electricity through my entire body. Over the following weeks, our Tuesday morning encounters became the highlight of my week. We'd exchange pleasantries, talk about books she was reading, current events, the weather, safe topics, normal topics, but there was nothing normal about the way I felt. I learned she was a part-time librarian at the University of Washington. Divorced, no, wait, married, very married. Her husband Richard was a successful attorney. They'd been together for 32 years. She had 3 grown children: Jessica, 31, a pediatrician in Portland; Michael, 29, who worked in finance in San Francisco; and Sarah, 26, a teacher right here in Seattle; 2 grandchildren: Emma, 4 years old, and baby Daniel, just 8 months. A whole life. A complete, established, complicated life that had absolutely no room for a 28-year-old entrepreneur who was falling hopelessly, stupidly, impossibly in love with her. The turning point came on a Tuesday in November. Seattle's notorious rain was particularly aggressive that morning, and when I arrived at Starbucks, I found Maggie sitting at our usual spot by the window. But something was different. Her book lay closed on the table, and she was staring out at the storm with an expression I'd never seen before. Sadness. No, not just sadness. Emptiness. "Mind if I sit?" I asked, even though we'd never shared a table before. She looked up, and for a moment I saw past the composed exterior to something raw and vulnerable underneath. "Please," she said softly. We sat in silence for several minutes, watching the rain streak down the windows. Finally, she spoke. "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life, Marcus? Like you wake up one day and realize that somewhere along the way, you stopped being yourself and became what everyone else needed you to be?" The question hit me like a physical blow, not because I felt that way, but because I recognized that she did. "I think," I said carefully, "that's one of the bravest things anyone has ever said to me." She turned to look at me then, really look at me, and I saw something shift in her eyes. Recognition, maybe, or understanding. "You're very young," she said, but not dismissively, more like she was reminding herself of a fact she'd been trying to ignore. "Age is just a number," I replied, immediately regretting how cliché it sounded. But she smiled. A real smile this time, not just polite acknowledgement. "Is it?" she asked. "I have a daughter only 2 years younger than you." "I know," I said. "And I know this is crazy. I know I shouldn't feel what I feel. I know there are 1,000 reasons why this is impossible." Her breath caught slightly. "What do you feel?" The moment of truth. The point of no return. "I think I'm falling in love with you, Margaret. And I hope, that maybe you feel something too." The silence that followed my confession felt like an eternity. Maggie's green eyes searched my face, looking for, what? Signs that I was joking? That this was some kind of cruel game? Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Marcus, you don't understand what you're saying. What you're asking. I understand that you're married. I understand that you have children and grandchildren. I understand that I'm asking you to consider something that goes against everything society says is appropriate." I leaned forward, lowering my voice. "But I also understand that connection like this doesn't happen every day, and I think you feel it too." She was quiet for a long moment, then picked up her book, holding it like a shield. "I should go," she said, but she didn't move. "Maggie, when was the last time someone made you feel truly alive?" The question seemed to physically impact her. Her composure cracked just slightly, and I saw a flash of pain so raw it took my breath away. "That's not fair," she whispered. "Neither is pretending this isn't happening." She didn't come to Starbucks the next Tuesday, or the Tuesday after that. For 3 weeks, I sat at that table by the window, drinking coffee that tasted like disappointment, and wondering if I'd pushed too hard, too fast. But I couldn't stop thinking about her, about the way she'd looked when she asked about living someone else's life, about the intelligence in her eyes, the grace in her movements, the way she could discuss everything from classical literature to current politics with equal passion. I found myself researching her work at the university library, not stalking, just learning. She'd published several papers on archival science and had organized multiple community literacy programs. She was accomplished, respected, making a real difference in the world. What could someone like me possibly offer someone like her? On the 4th Tuesday, she was there. Same table, same book. But something had changed. She looked up when I walked in, and there was a decision in her eyes. "I've been thinking about what you said," she began before I could even sit down. My heart started pounding. And I think you're right. I do feel something. Something I shouldn't feel. Something that scares me more than anything has scared me in years." I sat down slowly, afraid to break whatever spell was allowing this conversation to happen. "My marriage," she continued, her voice gaining strength. "Richard and we're more like business partners now. We manage our lives together, coordinate schedules, maintain appearances, but we haven't really talked, truly talked, in years. We haven't touched each other, beyond polite kisses goodbye, in longer than I care to admit." She paused, looking out the window at the Seattle skyline. "I love my children, my grandchildren. They are the center of my world. But somewhere in becoming a wife, a mother, a grandmother, I lost Margaret. I became everyone else's version of who I should be." "And what does Margaret want?" I asked softly. She looked directly at me then, and the intensity in her gaze nearly undid me. "Margaret wants to feel alive again. Margaret wants to remember what it's like to be desired, not just needed. Margaret wants to have a conversation that doesn't revolve around grocery lists and dental appointments, and whose turn it is to babysit the grandchildren. Margaret sounds like someone I'd very much like to know better." We started meeting for lunch. Innocent enough, we told ourselves. Just 2 friends having conversations over sandwiches at small cafes around the city. She'd tell me about her work at the library, about the graduate students she mentored, about books she'd discovered. I'd share stories about building my business, about the challenges of entrepreneurship, about my travels. But underneath the mundane topics, there was an electric current running between us. The way she'd lean forward when I spoke, genuinely interested in my opinions. The way her eyes would light up when she laughed at something I said. The careful way we'd avoid letting our hands touch when reaching for our coffee cups, as if we both knew that any physical contact would ignite something we weren't ready for. After our third lunch, as we walked back toward her car, she suddenly stopped. "This is insane, isn't it?" she said, but she was smiling. "Completely insane," I agreed. "Does that bother you?" "It should," she said. "Everything about this should bother me. The age difference, my situation, what people would think. But I haven't felt this happy in years. You make me remember who I used to be, who I still am, underneath all the roles I play." We were standing close now, closer than friends should stand. I could smell her perfume, something subtle and sophisticated that suited her perfectly. "Maggie," I said softly, "I need you to know something. This isn't a game for me. This isn't some young guy trying to check older woman off his bucket list. What I feel for you, it's real. It's deeper than anything I've ever experienced." Her eyes filled with tears, but they weren't sad tears. "I believe you," she whispered, "and that terrifies me." The shift happened gradually, then all at once. Our lunch meetings became longer, more frequent. We'd find excuses to text each other throughout the day. She'd send me photos of interesting books she'd found, and I'd respond with pictures of funny signs or beautiful sunsets from my business trips. It was a courtship conducted in stolen moments and careful words, but it was undeniably a courtship. The first time she touched me, really touched me, was on a Thursday afternoon in early December. We were walking through Pike Place Market, and she'd been telling me about her daughter Sarah's latest teaching challenges when she stumbled slightly on the uneven cobblestones. Instinctively, I reached out to steady her, my hand landing on her waist. She turned to thank me, and suddenly we were standing there, her body pressed against mine, my hand still resting on the curve of her hip. Time stopped. "Marcus," she breathed, and I heard everything she couldn't say in the way she said my name. "I know," I whispered back. "I know this is complicated. I know it's difficult, but I can't pretend anymore that I don't want you." She closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, I saw that the last of her resistance had crumbled. "Neither can I." We decided to meet the following Saturday. Richard would be playing golf, as he did every Saturday morning, and her children would be busy with their own lives. We'd have lunch, maybe walk around Green Lake, talk about where this was heading. But we both knew we were lying to ourselves. I picked her up at a small park near her house in Bellevue. She was wearing a cream-colored sweater and dark jeans, her hair loose around her shoulders. She looked beautiful, but more than that, she looked nervous. "Second thoughts?" I asked as she got into my car. "Third and fourth thoughts," she admitted. "But I'm here." We drove to a small bed and breakfast in Snoqualmie, about 40 minutes outside the city. Neutral territory, somewhere we could talk without interruption. At least, that's what we told ourselves. The inn was charming, rustic, with a view of the mountains that should have been breathtaking. But I couldn't focus on anything except the woman sitting across from me in the small restaurant, picking at her salad and avoiding eye contact. "We don't have to do anything," I said finally. "We can just talk. Figure out what this is, what we want it to be." She looked up then, and I saw the war playing out in her expression. "I've never cheated on my husband," she said quietly. "In 32 years of marriage, I've never even considered it. And now? Now I can't stop thinking about you, about us, about what it would feel like to be touched by someone who sees me as a woman, not just a wife and mother." The raw honesty in her voice nearly broke me. "Maggie, I need you to know, if we do this, if we cross this line, it changes everything. For both of us." "I know," she whispered, "and that scares me to death. But the thought of going back to my life, pretending I don't feel this way about you, That scares me more. We got a room. The innkeeper, a kindly woman in her 60s, didn't bat an eye when I asked for their best available room. If she noticed the age difference between us, or the nervous energy crackling in the air, she was too polite to show it. Room 7 was on the second floor, with wide windows overlooking the mountains and a fireplace that filled the space with warm, dancing light. Maggie stood by the window, her arms wrapped around herself, while I built up the fire. "I don't know how to do this," she said softly. I moved to stand behind her, close enough to feel the warmth of her body, but not quite touching. Do what? Be someone other than who I've been for the last 30 years. Be spontaneous. Be selfish. "This isn't selfish," I said. "Wanting to be happy isn't selfish." She turned to face me, and there were tears on her cheeks. "What if I disappoint you? What if I'm not what you think I am?" I reached up and gently wiped away her tears. "Impossible," I said. "You're exactly what I think you are. You're intelligent, compassionate, strong, beautiful. You're everything I never knew I was looking for. I'm 57 years old, Marcus. I have stretch marks and gray hair and—" I silenced her with a kiss. It was supposed to be gentle, reassuring, but the moment our lips touched, everything else disappeared. 30 years of marriage, 28 years of life, all the reasons this was impossible. None of it mattered. There was only her, only us, only this moment that felt like coming home. When we finally broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Maggie's eyes were wide, shocked by the intensity of what had just passed between us. "Oh my God," she whispered. "Are you okay?" I asked, suddenly afraid I'd pushed too far. Instead of answering, she kissed me again. This time, she was the one who deepened it, her hands fisting in my shirt, pulling me closer. When we separated, she rested her forehead against mine. "I haven't felt like this since— I can't remember when. Maybe never." "Maggie," I said, my voice rough with emotion, "are you sure? Really sure? Because once we—" "I'm sure," she said firmly. "For the first time in years, I'm completely sure about something. What happened next was more than physical intimacy. It was a reclaiming. With every touch, every kiss, every whispered word, I watched Margaret rediscover parts of herself that had been buried under decades of duty and expectation. She was beautiful. Not despite her age, but because of it. Every line on her face told a story. Every mark on her body was proof of a life fully lived. She was real in a way that the young women I'd dated never were. Substantial, present, completely herself. "You're incredible," I told her as we lay tangled in the sheets, the fire casting golden shadows on our skin. She turned to look at me, her hair spread across the pillow like silk. "You make me feel incredible," she said. I'd forgotten what it was like to be seen as a woman. Really seen. "How could anyone not see you?" I asked, genuinely confused. "How could your husband not—" She pressed a finger to my lips. "Don't," she said softly. "This moment is ours. Let's not bring anyone else into it." We talked for hours, about her childhood in Georgia, about my dreams for the future, about books and movies and places we wanted to travel. She told me about her early marriage, how she and Richard had been happy once, before life and work and children created distance between them. "We're not unhappy," she explained. "We're just empty, going through the motions. I think we both know it, but it's easier to maintain the status quo than to face the fact that we've grown into different people." "And now?" I asked. "Now I remember who I used to be, who I still am underneath everything else." I traced patterns on her bare shoulder, marveling at the softness of her skin. "What happens next, Maggie?" "I mean, after today?" She was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know," she admitted. "I can't leave my family. My grandchildren, they need their grandmother. My children would be devastated. And Richard, for all our problems, doesn't deserve to be hurt." My heart sank, but I tried not to let it show. "But," she continued, "I can't pretend this didn't happen. I can't go back to sleepwalking through my life. knowing what I know now, feeling what I feel now. So, what are you saying? She turned to face me fully, her green eyes serious and determined. I'm saying that maybe some relationships don't fit into neat categories. Maybe some kinds of love don't follow traditional rules. As the afternoon wore on, we made love again. Slower this time, more tender. It felt like a promise being made, a commitment to something neither of us fully understood yet. Afterward, as we dressed to head back to the city, the weight of reality began to settle in. "Are you okay?" I asked, watching her face in the mirror as she fixed her hair. "No," she said honestly. "I'm terrified, but I'm also more alive than I've felt in decades." "Regrets?" She turned to face me, her expression serious. "Not about this, not about you, but I'm scared about what comes next, about how we navigate this without destroying everything else in our lives." I took her hands in mine. "We'll figure it out," I said. "Whatever this is, wherever it leads, we'll figure it out together." The drive back to Seattle was quiet, both of us lost in thought. As we got closer to the city, I could feel Maggie's anxiety increasing. "Pull over," she said suddenly as we approached the exit for Bellevue. I found a parking spot overlooking Lake Washington. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. "I need to say something," she began, her voice shaking slightly. "What happened today? It can't be a one-time thing for me. I can't have this taste of what life could be like and then go back to pretending to be satisfied with what I have." My heart started pounding. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that I want to see you again. I'm saying that I want to explore this, whatever this is between us. But I need you to understand what you're signing up for." She turned to face me fully. "I can't leave my husband right now. Maybe not ever. I won't abandon my children or my grandchildren. This will have to be complicated, discreet. There will be times when I can't see you, can't even talk to you. There will be holidays and family events where I have to pretend you don't exist." The pain in her voice was evident, but so was her determination. "I need to know if you can handle that. If you can be with someone who can't give you everything you deserve." I reached for her hand, holding it tightly. "Maggie, I would rather have part of you than all of anyone else. I'd rather have stolen moments with you than a lifetime with someone I don't love the way I love you." Tears filled her eyes. "You love me?" "I'm completely, hopelessly, impossibly in love with you," I said. "And if complicated is what we have to work with, then we'll make complicated work." We spent the next hour making plans. We'd be careful, discreet. We'd continue meeting for lunch, but we'd also find ways to steal more time together. Weekend getaways when Richard was traveling for work, afternoon encounters when she could get away from her responsibilities. It wasn't ideal, it wasn't conventional, but it was ours. "I have one condition," she said, as I prepared to drive her back to her car. "Anything. Promise me that if you meet someone your own age, someone who can give you a normal relationship, you'll take it. Don't sacrifice your future for an affair with a married woman, no matter how much you think you love her. Maggie. Promise me, Marcus. I need to know that I'm not ruining your life." I looked into her eyes, seeing the love and fear and determination there. "I promise," I said, though I knew it was a promise I could never keep. "But you should know. This isn't an affair for me. This isn't a temporary thing or a midlife crisis or whatever people will call it when they find out. This is the real thing. You are the real thing." 3 months later, we're still navigating this strange, beautiful, complicated relationship. We meet when we can, text when it's safe, and count the days between encounters like teenagers in love. Is it ideal? Is it conventional? Absolutely not. Do I sometimes wish things were different, that we'd met at a different time in our lives when being together would be simple? Of course. But I've learned something important over these months. Love doesn't follow rules. It doesn't care about age or circumstances or social expectations. Real love, the kind that changes you fundamentally, is rare enough that when you find it, you fight for it. Maggie is blooming before my eyes. She started wearing her hair down more often, has begun choosing clothes that make her feel beautiful instead of invisible. She laughs more, speaks up in meetings at work, has started writing poetry again for the first time in 20 years. "You've given me back to myself," she told me last week as we walked hand in hand through the sculpture garden, careful to stay away from areas where we might be recognized. But she's given me something too. She's shown me what mature love looks like. Not the desperate, all-consuming passion of youth, but something deeper, something that sees clearly and chooses to love anyway. I know people will judge us when they find out. They'll say I'm having a midlife crisis, that she's robbing the cradle, that we're selfish and destructive. They'll focus on the age difference, the complications, the unconventional nature of our relationship. But they won't understand what we have. They won't see the way her eyes light up when she talks about her work, or how carefully she considers every decision, always thinking about how it will affect the people she loves. They won't know about the depth of our conversations, the way we challenge each other intellectually, the way we've both grown because of this relationship. Most importantly, they won't understand that sometimes love comes disguised as impossibility. Sometimes the person who completes you is exactly the person you never expected to fall for. I fell in love with a 57-year-old married woman with kids and grandkids. Society says it's wrong, inappropriate, doomed to failure. Maybe they're right about the last part. Maybe this relationship won't last forever. Maybe someday the complications will become too much, or one of us will decide the cost is too high. But right now, in this moment, we're happy. We're alive in a way neither of us has been in years. We're loving each other completely, even if we can't love each other conventionally. And sometimes that has to be enough. Sometimes love beyond conventions is the most honest love of all.